In the shadows of the digital underworld, there existed an entity that operated with the clinical precision of a Fortune 500 company and the ruthlessness of an organized crime syndicate. For years, the ransomware group known as Black Cat, or ALPHV, cast a long shadow over the global economy. They weren't just hackers, they were innovators in the grim business of digital extortion, perfecting the art of triple extortion, and targeting critical infrastructure that the world simply could not afford to lose. Their operations were so sophisticated and their impact so profound that they became the primary target of an international manhunt, a collision course between the most advanced cyber criminals in the world and the combined intelligence and law enforcement agencies of the United States and its allies. This is the story of how the FBI and their partners took the fight to Black Cat, infiltrating their inner sanctum and dismantling the machinery of a digital empire. To understand the scope of the operation against Black Cat, you have to understand why they were so dangerous. Unlike the scattered, low-level gangs of the past, Black Cat functioned as a platform. They were the architects of a ransomware as a service model, building the malware and the infrastructure, and then leasing it out to independent contractors, or affiliates, who did the actual dirty work of compromising corporate networks. This structure made them incredibly resilient. If one affiliate was caught, the core group remained safe. If the FBI managed to block one piece of infrastructure, they simply moved to another. But their ambition eventually became their undoing. As they grew in power, they began to target sectors that drew the immediate and undivided attention of national governments, healthcare systems, financial institutions, and critical government infrastructure. The attack on Change Healthcare, which crippled payment systems for pharmacies and hospitals across the United States, was a turning point. It was no longer just a crime, it was a national security emergency. The FBI's response was not merely reactive, it was a campaign of deep cover intelligence. The operation, which became public in late 2023, was the result of months of patient, methodical infiltration. While the public saw headlines about the takedown, the reality was a high-stakes game of digital espionage. Federal agents, working in tandem with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and international counterparts in countries like Germany and the Netherlands, managed to gain access to the very servers that Black Cat used to manage their affiliates. This wasn't a brute force attack, it was a quiet intrusion. The FBI didn't just want to shut down the website, they wanted to see the blueprint. By gaining access to the administrative backend of the Black Cat platform, the FBI achieved something unprecedented. They were able to monitor the communications between the core developers and the affiliates. They could see the victim lists, the chat logs, and the ransom negotiations in real time. They effectively became ghosts in the machine. This level of access allowed the FBI to do more than just observe. They were able to capture decryption keys that the hackers had been withholding from victims. In a stunning reversal, while the hackers were holding these keys for ransom, the FBI was secretly harvesting them, allowing them to provide a lifeline to hundreds of companies without the hackers ever realizing their defenses had been breached. This act of digital benevolence was a silent blow to the group's leverage. It undermined their credibility and deprived them of their primary bargaining chip. The climax of the operation arrived when the authorities decided to go public. They didn't just take the site offline, they executed a digital seizure that was as much a psychological operation as it was a technical one. When users, the affiliates and the victims, attempted to log into the Black Cat leak site, they weren't met with a 404 error. They were greeted by a stark, official banner from the FBI, announcing that the site had been seized. It was a massive, humiliating public defeat for a group that prided itself on being untouchable. They had spent years mocking law enforcement, only to find the police standing in their virtual living room. The message was clear: no matter how hidden you think you are, we can see you. However, the aftermath of the takedown reveals a sobering truth about the nature of modern cybercrime. The dismantling of Black Cat was a massive tactical victory, but it was not the end of the war. Within days, the core members of the group claimed that they had regained access to their servers and resumed operations, attempting to downplay the severity of the FBI's intrusion. They began to reorganize, rebranding under new names and tightening their security protocols. The whack-a-mole nature of cybercrime means that as long as the underlying economic incentive exists, as long as corporations are vulnerable and the profits are measured in millions, new groups will rise to fill the void. The individuals behind Black Cat didn't simply vanish into thin air, they dispersed, taking their code and their expertise with them to the next venture. Yet, despite the resilience of these criminal networks, the operation against Black Cat fundamentally shifted the landscape. It proved that international cooperation between law enforcement agencies could overcome the barriers of encryption and anonymity. It demonstrated that the private sector and government intelligence could work together to mitigate the damage of ransomware in real time. By seizing the keys, the FBI changed the risk calculus for every other ransomware gang on the dark web. They sent a message that the anonymity of the digital space is not absolute. For the affiliates, the trust that held the Black Cat ecosystem together began to erode. If the FBI could be in the system, who else was watching? Was the platform safe to use? The paranoia that this caused among the criminal ranks was arguably more damaging to the group's long-term viability than the loss of the website itself. As we look to the future, the lessons from the Black Cat takedown are clear. We are locked in an arms race that spans the physical and digital domains. The criminals are becoming more like corporations, and law enforcement is becoming more like the intelligence community.